Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on Achieving Speed and Governance with Automated BI Testing. This is Holly Rice from the marketing team at Modio, and with us today we have Amir Sarir from the Modio CI software team, and also Jeff Dean from the sales team here at Modio. Before we get started, I'm going to take you through a few items about the webinar platform itself. You'll notice the slides and the widgets at the bottom of your screen are resizable and movable. If you are experiencing any kind of difficulty, refresh your screen. And if you're still having problems, that yellow icon at the bottom with the question mark can get you directly to technical difficulty help. We will have a brief Q&A session following the demonstration. And just submit your questions using that purple Q&A widget, and we'll get to those. We also have a short survey, so towards the end of the webinar, if you would take just a couple of minutes to fill that out, we would appreciate it. We are recording, so if you need to jump off or would like to share it with your colleagues later, not to worry, we'll send that recording right out to you. And with that, I will pass along to Jeff Dean to get us going. Jeff?
Thanks, Holly. I appreciate it. And before we jump into this, everyone, thank you and welcome. Hopefully this will be a very informative half hour for you. Would like to start off with getting an understanding of how many people outside of your individual team are actually creating reports. So we'll take a minute or so. If you just select a radio button that's close enough, and we'll look at that in a second. Okay, that's not bad. We've got a fairly broad section there, but it looks like most of it is a small set of folks outside of the BI teams. When we're looking at business intelligence, one of the things that's really become a buzzword, if you will, and started out as a buzzword in industry, is that self-service. However, it has been widely embraced in many organizations, and in fact, in some, it's just a fact of life. Some of the results of allowing and encouraging self-service, though, have not been overly positive. So if we look at the dialogue, IT is attempting to balance self-service and environmental protection, if you will. Because if the impact on the application is too great, everyone pays price, business and IT. So the question is, how do we manage this conversation for both sides? So Modio has a way to do both, provide report development governance while reducing the inherent risk, if you will, of self-service. The title does say IT versus business, but it's not exactly that. It's more of a question about how do we achieve the balance of time to market, one version of the truth in answering business-related questions, and providing guidelines for report development. Speed's critical, but so is accuracy. I'd like to take just a second here from another poll perspective. So if you do have folks that are outside, the 1 to 5 in the different categories, and they're creating reports, what has been the biggest challenge that you see, whether it's a challenge for you as part of the IT group or part of the business group? We'll take a second to answer that. Oh, that's an interesting split. Okay, so we've got about equal amounts for getting the reports to work, but then we've got a performance issue, but the overwhelming part is quality. And that's really one of the main factors that we're talking about today. So, when we look at testing, it has as many definitions as the number of people you ask. So the question I have for you to think about, and we do have a survey at the end, as Holly mentioned, that you can type in, and we'd like to see what your thoughts are on this, but how do you define the term testing within your organization? And how do you implement it? Is it process-driven? Everybody has to do the same thing, or is it more ad hoc? And do you actually have any standards? And if you do, who sets them? Does the business set them? Does the IT group set them? And is there agreement? So Modio spent years working with our customers to deliver an in-the-box set of tests that you can run against your BI content. And Amir's going to go through a few of these. But we also know that there's business logic that Modio's not even thought of, things that you have in your organization that you would like to test for, if you will, or governance that you'd like to apply to your report development. And we have the ability to add those pieces of logic into the testing suite. So if you think about it, what would it be if you could implement that logic and create an automated process that speeds the report development lifecycle and at the same time accomplishes the goals of IT around protection of the environment and making sure that things are stable while the business gets what they need from a time to market and self-service? So what would be the impact and the value of that? And would it drive even more success with self-service? So these are just 4 examples, and Amir is going to go through some. But again, we have almost 60 in the box that you can use to automate and improve the governance and guidance of your report development world and help that self-service. The logic can do things like avoiding those report performance issues that people outlined in the poll, but also how do we ensure data quality? That's key. And then drive down that time to market. So the question is, what is the impact and what would be the impact if you could automate this? Got one more real quick poll question here, and this is the one where I'd like for you to type in as much detail as you can. When it comes to the testing of Cognos artifacts and objects, what really matters to you? So we'll take a minute or two, and then we'll dig into the actual demonstration itself. Now, unfortunately, due to technology, we won't be able to show all of the answers that you've provided, but what Holly will do is send out a follow-up email to everyone who's registered so you can see what some of these questions are. And the idea here is hopefully spark some thought and some discussion about how automated testing may have a positive impact on your environment. So with that, we'll move on to the video of the demonstration, and we've chosen to do a video because of the nature of some of these live demos, if you will, don't always work out the way that we would like to. So let's move right on to the video itself.
With Modio CI, the IT personnel of a company can easily keep a close watch on the performance and the overall structure of reports within the Cognos environment, and I'll demonstrate that here. So as an IT personnel, I'm logged into Modio CI, and as you can see under the development node, I have created a new project called IT Analysis, and this is where I'll be doing most of my testing. So under here, I'll be primarily using 2 assertions in order to test for the complexity of reports and also the execution time of them, and make sure they don't pass a certain threshold. For the complexity, we will be using a new assertion called Report Complexity and Analyzer. And what this assertion does is that it ranks the underlying test case that it's been running under based on the overall count of queries, prompts, and objects. And for execution time, we'll be running the execution time stability, which basically keeps a close watch on the execution time of reports, and it will fail or throw a warning message if suddenly the execution time exceeds the baseline threshold. So let's dig in a little bit further here and take a look at my setup. Here, I have used the Generate Test Case Wizard in order to create test cases for all of the objects in my environment. And the ones that I'm mostly interested in are reports, and let's take a look at those. Underneath each report, I have two test cases, and one is an executable, and under that one, I have my execution time stability assertion sitting in, and that one needs to be under the executable test case because for execution you need to run the report. And the other one, the non-executable test case, houses the report complexity analyzer. And I, as an IT personnel, I want to run these test cases, but I don't want to run them one by one. And I want to use Modio CI in order to automatically run all of these in one and basically be notified of any problems. And that's what CI does. Okay, with test scripts down here, I have a test script called Nightly. And this one, if you go in and see, you have all the test cases that are matching this criteria, which is if they have changes or they have failed. And this test script is running on a schedule that is set to run at 4 a.m. every morning. So every test case that has failed or there were some changes made to it will run at 4 a.m. every day. Okay, and what it does, or what I can do, I can have it email me statuses when there are any failures. So every morning I will have an email sitting in my inbox of reports of any further failures. And here also I have another test script that's called complexity. And down here, let's take a look at the criteria here. I'm interested in test cases that have the category marked as highly complex report. And these are the complexities that we talked about, them being the overall query count or prompt count, and also the number of objects that are within the report specification. And I think we already saw, but I have one test case that matches that criteria, and it is sitting here underneath this test script. So I will see that this every morning I can come in and check here and see that this test case, the report for this test case needs to be validated, needs to be revisited, and I've basically done nothing other than setting this up at one time and being notified afterwards. Okay. The other one that I'm also interested in is for the long-running reports. I, as an IT personnel, would want to be notified if a report all of a sudden takes too long to run. And for that, I have created this test script that looks for items or test cases with the long execution time criteria. And as you can see, I have one report that matches that criteria. And again, same thing as complexity. In the morning, I can come in and be notified of this first of all, and then I can take action and go and see why this report all of a sudden is taking too long to run. From the business perspective, we are looking for speed and efficiency and being able to perform certain tests automatically and on the go and on the fly in order to keep us from having to go back and revisit and catch for errors. And so today, for this demo, we'll be using two assertions. One of them is called no absolute image paths, which basically looks for all the images that are embedded within a report and make sure that the paths in those images are not absolute and they're all relative, which is fairly important. And the other one is allowed images. And allowed images assertion basically points to a template report that we have created for our company standard, and which contains all the images that we allow to be embedded within all the reports that are created with our environment. And we'll be demoing that as well. So let's say I've been working on this new report and I'm almost done with the content at this point, and the only thing that's there's left is adding the logo to the top. And in our company we have a standard, basically have a standard logo that is the only image that we are allowed to add to all of our reports in our environment. And so let's go ahead and show you this report. It's called Actual versus Planning. And if I expand this, I have created 2 test cases, executable ones. And the one that I'm interested in is this one that contains the 2 assertions that we talked about. And if you look, the allowed images, if I go in and edit it, it is pointing to a template report that we have in our company that contains the logo with the right image and the right image path. Okay, and that's the only one we are allowed to use. And with CI, we can make sure that the logo that any report contains is pointing to this one right here in within the template report. So if I go back to Cognos, and this is the corporate standard template report that I have in here that contains that logo. And if I go in here, this is the report that I've been working on. So let's go and open it in Assertion Studio and see, take a look at my progress. Okay, so as you can see, I'm almost done. It's very simple report, but I'll go ahead and check it out. Okay, because it's time for me to add the logo. I'll go ahead and add an image here. I'll just set it right here, let's say, and edit the image path. And let's say I'm not really sure what logo it is. We have a whole bunch of them. So I'll just go ahead and point it to this one, logo underlined black, and click OK. All right. And so I don't want to have to go in and check every single image and its path and make sure that it's the right one. I want Modio CI to automatically does that for me, and it actually does. So if I save this report and open the test cases, okay, you can see the 2 test cases that I have, and I'll highlight the one that I'm interested in that relates to the corporate standards, which is the one that I'm testing right now, and I can go ahead and run it. So let's run it. Okay, you're waiting. Now we're running the assertions. All right, we got a failure. Let's take a look and see what went wrong. All right, so right off the bat, I'm getting this message here. The assertion that failed is the allowed images, not surprisingly, because I was not really paying attention to what logo I was putting in. And as a result, I'm getting this message that logo underlined black.png is not present in the template object. Okay, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and close out of this. So I know that I was not using the right one. So let's go in and let's say I find out what the right one is. And I will go ahead and fix this. All right, so this is the right logo. Let's go ahead and save this right here. Open the test cases. I want to make sure, just do a final check. I'm pretty sure this is the right one, but let's just go ahead and make sure. All right, so we got a success message, and let's see, all images in the report specification are present in the template object. So there you go. I also have no absolute image paths, which is good news, and all the images are allowed and meet our company standards. So I'm all good to go. I can go ahead and undo check out, and that's it. There you have it. I'm all done. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, everybody. And so with that, we'd like to open up the floor for questions and answers. Holly, over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, looks like we only have just a few questions coming through. So I invite the audience to submit any additional questions you might have, but we'll go through these few that we have and possibly give you back some time to your afternoon. Okay, so does a business user need their own license for Modio CI in order to self-test?
I'll go ahead and take that one. For the end user, the business community, to leverage the testing in Modio CI, they do not need an individual license. The only person who would need an individual license to deal with assertions in Modio CI is what we would call a testing user, and that person would work specifically to augment or create their own sets of logic that you would then apply. But to use the assertions, you do not need a separate license.
Okay. All right, the next one we have is how many types of testing assertions do you get with Modio CI?
I believe in the box right now we have close to 60. We just added a few recently and set out with an updated Modio CI. And that's one of the benefits, is that as we learn more from folks like that are on the call, we will leverage that knowledge and add in baseline assertions as we learn them.
Okay, next question. In the video, he mentioned the executable and non-executable test scripts. How do you know or differentiate between them? Are their icons different?
I can go ahead and take that, Holly. Yes, so the way you can differentiate them in Modio CI is by the icons. The test cases that are executable, you see a tiny little, like a play button that you used to see on old cassette players. You'll see one of those on there. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Okay, how do you compare to report outputs in Excel is our next question.
Yeah, I can answer that as well. So the report outputs that are produced by Cognos objects, for example, the reports, when we get those, you can have different assertions that do the comparison between those Excel outputs, or essentially files. And then if there's a difference, we will automatically notify you that in the test case results that there was a difference found, and then there will be a diff link that you can click on, and then we'll show you both Excel outputs side by side, and that way you can differentiate and see the differences.
Okay. And this next question, can you compare output from multiple data source connections?
To compare output from multiple data source connections, basically, you can have data source connections that are connected to Modio CI, and then you can have, through your assertions, basically consume and connect to those data sources and basically run queries against them and things of that nature. So that way you can basically when you run queries, you get the output from those data source connections, and then you can, through other steps within your assertion, you can basically work with those and basically do comparison if you want. I hope I'm understanding your question correctly and answered it for you.